Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Lab 115S. These are short springs. This is a package of 100 of these short springs. And this video will be a visual review of the item, a little bit of dimensional review as best we can. And then we'll show you some supporting documentation. Obviously not much to see here because it's such a small piece of equipment. It's a particular spring, and springs, every spring is particular when it comes to locks and cylinders and whatnot. The outside diameter is 0.106 outside diameter. The overall length of the item, and I'll put it here on my desk, and at least have an educated idea in terms of what it measures. I'd say about 0.4 inch overall length. 0.4. A wire diameter, if I can pinch one of the coils here with my caliper, I may not be able to. .1 inch, pardon me. So we're going to go with 0.01 inch. 0.01 inch. There is some supporting documentation down below. Let's switch to the screen view and take a look. Okay, so here's the item that we're looking at. Not much to see here. A pack of 100.115, that would be a reference to the chamber diameter that would work in. But the link here to the manufacturer's page, that's going to allow us to open up the product catalog and look at all the springs. And there is a link below this video showing the cut sheet that will allow you to review the 2 pages worth of springs. I happen to know they're on pages 5 and 6. So we're dealing with a 115 short. And here it is, 115S. Now, this part number is SP1 because it's a poly bag rather than a plastic vial, 100 in a bag. It's just purely how you prefer to order them. I personally like vials because vials are easier to stack in a box or on a shelf and see from the printing on the top of the vial what you have. You're going to start a job. You want to be able to quickly make sure that you have the adequate resources available once you start pinning. You know, it'll either show, I find that it shows me that I have far too many of something or zero of something that I need. So that's the short spring. The question is, where does it go? What do you use it in? Before we answer that, the 115L would be a typical spring for their .003, .005 emerald wedge sort of universal kit. What I do is a find function on the keyboard, 115S, and then I can cycle through the catalog and find all of the instances of it. And as we do so, okay, so the Woody Classic has 115S's in it. That tells us a kit that it comes in. A Sargent kit, so clearly Sargent cylinders will use 115 shorts, as will Weiser. Again, Sargent. Lab Mini Directs Security Plus. So there's a security kit that they clearly have that takes 115 springs. I don't know what sort of security cylinder is going to use a shorter spring. That information you'll certainly get from the specifications of the manufacturer. So if you're doing Medeco removable core, or you're doing Corbin Russwin security or removable core, or any manufacturer, it is very common that you'll use a different spring in those chambers that have the control lug, the control chambers. You'll use a different spring in those. So that short might be where they're using that. The Yale .019 increment, Yale is going to take a 115 short. Westlock has it. Then whatever this kit is, LSPG kit. So that is a kit that has lots of different springs in it. That's pretty nice. You know, what happens when, you know, for me anyway, if we're going to do a job of small format interchangeable core and we're going to do 30 cylinders, well, you know, you need to have more than 2 vials of springs ready to go. If it's 6-pin or 7-pin, you're going to need to have 3 vials of springs just to populate those chambers with springs. So be mindful, you know, that when you're ordering this stuff that you've got enough to go around. This kit, this product catalog is really handy. It will allow you to review all things lab related. Springs, pins, complete kits, locksmithing tools. Those are going to be near the end of the catalog. Picking instruments, plug followers, tension wrenches, cap removal tool, tweezers, lube, polytetrafluoroethylene. Polytetrafluoroethylene. I don't know whose lock line that's going to be endorsed to be used in. Do not use lubricant in a cylinder until you know it's approved. Speaking of springs, what they don't have in here, I think, are the Medeco sidebar springs. Speaking of Medeco and sidebar and lubricant, you put the wrong lubricant in there, you're going to gum up those sidebars. That is some really tiny equipment that you're dealing with. So only the approved lube for that. Lab will probably know who endorses their product. I would certainly search that out before you proceed and order it. I can't imagine if you're doing Schlage or Kwikset that this would be a problem. But in these high security cylinders, you're going to want to be sure. A decoding chamber kit, interchangeable core annex with slide out code book. This is the book here. I'm going to say that this is for small format. If you're going to dump all your pins into the book, that's handy because you can then measure the pins and you'll obviously be able to decode what would be a change key, a master key, at least within reason. A control key, certainly, you'll be able to decode. Key gauges, pin kits, pickle fork. This is the Kwikset pickle fork. That's a cylinder removal tool, but Kwikset will literally know it as a pickle fork. More information here as well. I can talk about lab products in the sense that I'm familiar with most of it. I've been using it for 3 decades and have never once encountered a defective or faulty lab product. Let's switch back to the screen view and finish up this video. In conclusion, a very typical product, this lab small spring. I don't bump into the requirement for the small springs very often because I don't bump into that environment of those Weiser, Yale, you know, whatever else was listed there. But I can tell you that using the wrong spring it might work for a while, but someday that is going to fail because of that spring most likely. Either you're not driving enough tension because the spring's too short, or the spring is too long or too stiff. It's going to cause premature wear. And, you know, I have found that trying to swap springs in interchangeable core, if I'm doing Falcon, I need to use the spring for Falcon. The best spring is not going to work, even though the pin stack, the plug total is the same. You know, the cylinder specs are basically the same. Swapping out unknown components is a recipe for failure. No reason. It's likely that lab has the correct item that you need. I would look to purchase lab products every time that I could. It's certainly well known that many major lock manufacturers have their parts made by lab. Lab has the equipment, and it is only very rare when a manufacturer would not use lab. I know that either ASA, it has to be ASA. I believe ASA had tried to have lab make their pins, but they couldn't manufacture them to the tolerance that's necessary, is what I had been told or read. And so they do all of that in-house. You know, and I'm not sure what sort of tolerance their work requires beyond other manufacturers. It obviously does exist. And it is well known to be highly, their tolerances are quite extreme and tight. You know, I believe that lab makes pins for Medeco. Those are some pretty good tolerance as well. But nonetheless, Lab is a good product. Any questions on the 115S short spring or any other Lab product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.